more at the bar than here.
I was just texting him.
We know that there'll be more at the bar than here.
Zoom in from the bar. Right?
I suppose so. Mike Walsh should be here, won't he?
Yeah, Beverly and Carlin. I just want to let you know, we're going to just run through a couple of items because we want you to have the full attention all the way down to the end. We're just going to move the couple of bullets real quick at the beginning, and then it's all about the concept plan all throughout the rest of the presentation. Just a couple of things. It's just rallying everybody. And then we're going to be on our way. What's up? Peter? Just let us know when we're ready to go.
Yeah, I believe you can go. I believe you're past your time, so go ahead.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Welcome, everyone. I appreciate everybody here in attendance here at town offices and anybody that's dialed in remote, and obviously NEMCOG that's joining us to present and do the grand reveal. My name is Joe Tierney, and I'm the current chair of Vinyl Square Committee. And right here in the room, we have Mike Walsh to my left. He's our planning board representative. Brian Creamer, Bill Gillette, and Dan Rokas. And I believe we have Laura Lee is remote, and unfortunately Janet could not make it tonight, but she does a great job with our minutes and notes, et cetera, and the planters. And I just wanted to start off before we get into the grand reveal of this concept plan. I want to thank everyone here in the room, around town that can't make us, so that's watching this on a recording. We had a fantastic results in number of surveys. 150 people took the survey to show what their concerns are, what they'd like to see changed in Vinyl Square, and then phenomenal turnout. We really appreciate that. Then in July, we had an overview of the findings and what the priorities are of everybody's concerns, sidewalks, et cetera, and this is what's going to be revealed tonight. And then over the summer, Justin actually laid out a nice plan, and that is the concept plan right now, and that is going to be the reveal, and it's about an information session and get your feedback. A couple of quick items, because we want it to be all focused there, and we are promising you that you can get to the Patriots game shortly, right after this. We all know that. They're playing very well. So a couple of things. One, we do want to keep focus on this plan to make sure along the way we keep tweaking it or work with NEMCOG and make sure that when this gets presented to DOT that it's the way we want it, that it's what we want Vinyl Square to look, feel like, and improvements for safety, convenience. It's a place you want to hang out, enjoy businesses, and walk your dog, walk your family, and really the improvements are fantastic. And again, I appreciate that. So if anybody wants to continue to be involved outside of this meeting, please reach out to me. Again, Joe Tierney. You can find my information online on the town website. The other thing, we have wayfinding signage, and this kind of adjustment, that is on hold, but we are going to have a committee that's going to just make sure the sizes and placements are correct. And I appreciate the Gillette family stepping up. They're going to help lay out the final sizes and just double check all the places where our wayfinding sign is going to go. And also Dr. Crane is going to be on that committee too, and I'll be the point person there as well. Varney Park and Playground. We have a new playground coming up, and Brian Kramer, along with Steve Callan at DPW. And we have a committee, and again, I just appeal to you, the best way you enjoy your town is make it the way you want it. And we are looking for people that want to get more involved with the Varney Playground and Park and any of these committees I mentioned. Mm-hmm. And if you have any questions or would like to be more part of that, please reach out to Brian. Holiday tree lighting, we're back on this year, and we're looking forward to December 4th at 4 o'clock. You'll start seeing flyers, but North Village, we have a nice program that we have put on by Bill Latender and Karen Roy. And they are actually also looking for people to partake this year and help transition, because we need people to continue these great traditions. Otherwise, we can't have them, and we want to continue them. So please reach out to myself, Karen, or Bill. This weekend, we're going to be at the Common, putting up the lights and the wreaths. If anybody wants to partake, we'll be there at 10 o'clock. And then again, the actual festivities on December 4th. Sunday, yes. And lastly, North Town Hall. Laura Lee is the point person at North Town Hall. That is not currently open, but we are looking to hopefully open that at some point soon. Again, if you are interested in things and traditions, there's some great things that go around there. In October, we had the parade and the party for the kids. But the people that are involved with that, their kids aren't Halloween age anymore, so we really need people to step up and get more involved in things like that, or anything else you want to see going into North Town Hall with the movie nights, et cetera. And other than that, Bill, do you have a couple of points you just want to make quickly before we get into this?
Yeah, I guess I would. There are two pieces of property that are in the square where the property owners are looking for feedback from this committee or the community. One is the hardware store in Louise Tremblay. She plans to put on new siding when the weather gets good, so I assume that will mean the spring, and she is very open to feedback on what could go in there. The second is Gabe Garavinian and some land that they have behind where the travel agency is, and again, very open to feedback from the committee or the community on what might work there. And I think maybe we just highlight, Joe, a couple of the things that may have happened at town meeting. We did get funding for Freeman Lake to clean up the weeds. There is the sidewalk for Williamsburg from the square is in with the Department of Transportation, thanks to Rep. Golden. The Southwell Walking Trail has been improved, thanks to the DPW for getting some of that stuff. And, you know, maybe noting that the liquor store is going to wind up moving in next to the Princeton station in renovating that building that's been a beautiful piece of property for many years. That's it.
Awesome. Well, for the moment, we've all been waiting for is a grand reveal of the concept plan. And again, I want to welcome Beverly, Justin, and Carlin from NEMCOG, and we're ready to go. I will steer the slide, so Justin, when you are ready to either engage for feedback or move on to the next slide, just let me know.
Okay, so I don't need to share my screen?
No, I will be doing that for you.
Okay. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Justin Howard. I am the Assistant Director with the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments, and I just wanted to introduce the people from NEMCOG that are with me here today. Beverly Woods, our Executive Directors here, and as well as Carlin Andrews, our GIS Specialist. And so tonight, the goal is to present the draft concepts for transportation improvements to Vinyl Square. So next slide, the concept plan overview. Okay, good. And so just to educate everyone, this project is being funded through the District Local Technical Assistance Program, and it's using funding provided through the Massachusetts Legislature, and Chelmsford applied for those funds with NEMCOG to develop this concept plan for Vinyl Square. And there were three objectives that we wanted to achieve with this project. And one of those is to conduct a public participation effort, which aids in the development of the actual concept plan itself. And in addition to that, part of the concept plan is focusing on recommendations of different kind of transportation improvements, pedestrian, traffic flow, anything outlined in the feedback that we'll have received from the public. And basically the goal of this is to provide information to the town, to decision makers of the town, in support of development of of design and construction of improvements to the square through the Transportation Improvement Program process with Mass DOT and the Northern Middlesex MPO. And just to say, Mass DOT has ownership of Route 3A, which is the main roadway running through the study area. Okay, next slide, please. So before we get into the concepts for the square, I just wanted to recap what's been done so far, and that the main effort done previously to development of the concepts was to solicit input from the public, and we did that via an online survey. And this map that is shown here it's basically a heat map, and it shows results of the survey and the feedback, and just summarizes areas of concern and hotspots. And most of these hotspots you should be familiar with. It's basically Groton Road, Dunstable Road, Watton Street, Middlesex Street at Princeton Street. There are issues with parking, traffic signal technology, improving sidewalk network, and crosswalks. They all show up as different areas of concern. And one of the other areas was placemaking. So that was another important issue to respondents, looking to have more areas where people can gather within the square. So the concepts that we present will show a few of those locations as well. So we use this, and next slide, please. So we use this. This is actually results of the survey. We received 258 different ideas, different concerns, and we put them into 5 different categories. And the main one of those, the top categories were, walking, biking, accessibility in the area, roadway and traffic flow issues. In addition, there's streetscape issues, parking issues, and transit issues as well. So that's kind of a general overview of what we got out of the survey. So next slide.
Justin, not to interrupt you, but if whoever's running the admin could do the share screen, we could see the slides better. All we're seeing is those small squares under the PowerPoint Zoom for the individual slides, and they're hard for people to read.
That is up to the committee. I can share my screen as well.
Thank you, Paul.
Would you like me to share my screen, Joe?
What's that?
This is Pete. Those should be appearing on the monitor in the room
Is that better?
behind you up on the wall. If that's not the case, maybe Kurt can run out and make that happen.
I just don't think people online can see it.
People online, if they're watching online, they can see fine. What they need to do is pin the admin. I'm watching it great on Zoom. If they just watch the admin feed, pin that and make that full screen, you can see it just fine.
It comes out very blurry, even when you pin it.
It looks fine on this end. I don't know what to do.
So see if he can share it.
I'm not having that experience, so I'm not quite sure what to say about that.
And no way Justin can share.
It is in preview mode. It's not in the full screen mode anymore. It was in preview. It was full screen. I see Weir's Beach. Oh, I see quite a, yeah.
So that's full screen. So it's blurry when people pin it.
A little bit blurry, but
It's a little bit blurry, yeah.
It looks full screen on our screen behind me. That's why I don't know
Yeah.
what to do.
Oh yeah, it's a little blurry.
You want to try his? I can share it.
But it is readable
Yeah.
to me.
Can we have, I'd rather move on, but do you think we can try to have Justin try to share his screen?
Sure, Kurt, we'll see how that works. Kurt, can you, we'll have Justin share his screen and you can put up Justin's screen.
Okay.
Life in the virtual world.
All right.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see if you can get a focus.
It's taken 2 years to get this far. Another 2 years.
That's much better.
Another 2 years.
So how does that look?
Much better.
Very
Much
good.
better on Zoom.
So you may still be going here because they're not seeing it in the gallery.
Joe, are you fine with me continuing?
No, I'm fine. What page you on now?
There it is.
I'm gonna run it from my end.
I just will follow you in the room though.
Okay, page 5.
Thank you.
Okay. So that was we had just finished talking about the survey. So in July, we held a public meeting to go over the results of the survey and to solicit feedback from those attending that public meeting. And these are kind of the results of a polling effort that we did during that meeting back in July. And you see, we poll people on their top on the top priorities for transportation improvements, and we saw pedestrian and bicycle and safety accommodation improvements as the number one, with roadway and traffic flow measures right behind it. We poll people on pedestrian and bicycle improvements, roadway operational improvements, as well as parking improvements, and you see the different and the results of the public meeting feedback of our polling effort kind of mirror the survey results that we received via that online survey. So that's that. So next slide. So before we get into specific, oh, I'm sorry, let me go back. So before we get into the specifics of the concept plan, I just wanted to go over some of the general improvements that will be made to the project area as part of any kind of construction project. And we take a complete streets approach to everything. And first off, we'll upgrade the existing traffic signal in Vinyl Square. It is dated. So new technology with that. All pavement in the project area will be resurfaced and repaired as necessary. All pavement markings, all regulatory signage will be upgraded and installed to conform to federal standards, the Manual Uniform Traffic Control Design Standards, MUTCD. And in addition to that, sidewalk network will be improved to conform to ADA standards. And as you see here, this is in front of the Zesties Pizza. The sidewalk there is not ADA compliant with the steps there. So like I said, we're taking a complete streets approach. So that means all modes of travel must be taken into account as we do any kind of construction improvements, and that includes sidewalks, bike lanes, things of that nature. So moving on to, and we discussed, we talked about a need for improving the crosswalks as well, and we will talk about that in more detail, but it involves installing rectangular rapid flashing beacons, which are the flashing lights that are pedestrian activated at crossings, and you've seen those.
Just real quick, Dan wanted to point out Zesties does deliver in case anybody had any issue with that step, so.
Good points. So here's an overall map of the study area that we looked at. It's kind of a satellite view of all the different concepts that we're going to be presenting here tonight. And I won't dwell on this slide too much, but it's it's because we're going to focus on different specific areas within this study area, but you see the general concepts that I just discussed with sidewalk improvements, with crosswalk improvements, and bike lanes and things of that nature. So delving into specific areas within the project area, we first wanted to focus on Dunstable Road, Groton Road, and Adam Street, because that is that was a priority in the feedback that we received back in July. So on the left, you see the concerns that came out of the feedback that came out of the survey. Things like traffic congestion on Dunstable Road and Groton Road, the signal timing being too short, the issues with vehicles not being able to turn left from Dunstable Road onto Groton Road, poor visibility, traffic on Groton Road interferes with Watton Street, and wrong way traffic on Adam Street was noted as well. So on the right here, you see kind of the concept plan in word form, and I'll bring up a map talking about each one of these plans. But basically, its focus is on moving Dunstable Road traffic through the intersection a little easier by incorporating it into the overall Vinyl Square traffic signal with its own phase. So focusing on this area, I wanted to bring this up and talk about everything as a more visually. So what we did here is basically we wanted to realign Dunstable Road so that vehicles coming off of Princeton Street, turn left, will no longer have that free flow access onto Dunstable Road, leaving the center or leaving the square. Rather, they'll have to take a left onto Groton and a right onto Dunstable Road, approximately 100 feet into Groton Road. And the reason we did this, excuse me, is because of the idea of placemaking in the square. We heard in our feedback that more outdoor gathering areas were desired, and this area kind of stood out as something that we could do to make a new place for benches, for tables, street trees, plantings, just a gathering place where people could meet to either eat outdoors or just meet in the square. And we realized this would be a good place to put one of those gathering areas. Excuse me. So the biggest issue that we heard was the access from Dunstable Road onto Groton Road. So the concept idea that we're presenting tonight is to incorporate Dunstable Road into the overall signal at Vinyl Square. So that means what we will do is we'll take the existing Groton Road stop line and move it back to the east of Dunstable Road intersection, and give Dunstable Road a signal phase, an exclusive signal phase for those people turning left onto Groton Road. And now I know there's a whole issue with congestion as well. So this concept, it's going to be subject to a detailed traffic study during the design phase, and but this sort of addresses that big issue of Dunstable Road traffic not being able to get into the queue on Groton Road, and so this is the concept. And I wanted to move on to the next things. One of the things we heard was Adam Street wrong way traffic was an issue. So people were heading towards the square on Adam Street, and what we thought to do is, as far as and this could be a quick short-term type project, was to improve the overall signage there at Newfield Street and Adam Street intersection. Right now, there is a do not enter sign on Adams Street, but it's kind of faded and it's not well seen. So what we propose to do is put no right turn signs and no left turn signs on the approaches at Newfield Street. And with that, in addition to that, put in new pavement markings on Adams Street, just to make the focus such that the roadway will be one way heading away from the square, and just to reinforce that the street is one way. So the next area we looked at, where we proposed some improvements, is in the Princeton Street, Middlesex Street intersection area. And the concerns that we heard: poor visibility, congestion, lack of people stopping at the existing stop sign for the right turns on Middlesex Street onto Princeton, speed on Princeton Street, and of course pavement conditions were an issue. So the concept that we're presenting tonight, and I'll show you visually on the next couple of slides, and it includes a realignment of Middlesex Street to better channelize everything, and installing a new traffic signal at that intersection to tee up everything. And let's move on to the visual so everyone can see it. So what happens is Middlesex Street right now goes straight through, but we're going to tee it up with Princeton Street, and that area where the right turners use now, we're going to turn it into a green space, a gathering area with pedestrian lighting, with benches, street trees, things like that. Seem similar to what we did over on Dunstable Road. It's just like a gathering area and a place for people to eat outdoors and just meet in the square. So with that with the teeing up of the intersection, we propose a new traffic signal with crosswalks, a new crosswalk across Princeton Street, bike lanes along Princeton Street through the square on both sides, and yeah. So that is that, and this is a rendering that Brian Kramer provided for us. It's just a visualization of what it could look like. A reimagined Middlesex Street approach to Princeton Street, so with all the improvements that are made. And then you see the new signal there. You see the gathering area that I just mentioned, pedestrian lighting, street trees, a potential for bike lanes even along Middlesex Street, new crosswalks at the light, as well as the wayfinding signage that was just discussed earlier this evening. And so this is just basically a visualization of what it could look like. So this is kind of the same area, but we've zoomed out and we've changed our focus here, because the focus here on this map are the crosswalks. So at the new signalized intersection at Princeton and Middlesex Street, we'll have a new crosswalk with pedestrian phases built into the signal. So with that in place, we decided that the existing mid-block crossing in front of the Congregational Church was not really necessary to be there. We decided to move it to the intersection at Wright Street. So you have a protected crossing of Princeton Street at Middlesex Street, and you'll have a crossing at Wright Street with rapid reflecting beacons that are push button activated, so they'll light up when a pedestrian pushes the button to cross, and just make the crossing more visually appealing to approaching motorists. And we are doing the same thing on Middlesex Street, the current mid-block crossing there across from, I believe it's Sunshine Carpet and the Common. We are going to, because there's a crosswalk built into the signal at Middlesex and Princeton, we decided to move that mid-block to the right street and add the RRFB beacons there as well. And finally, the crosswalk at Princeton Street and Washington Street Cottage Row intersection down here at the bottom. It's been a concern of the town for years. The crosswalk's located at the North Town Hall and the fire station, which is under construction and situated at the crest of a hill. So visibility of the crosswalk has been a concern for years by the town. So the plan that we are proposing is to improve the overall advanced warning with new signage, improve pavement markings right at the crosswalk, and install the rapid reflecting beacons that are pedestrian activated at that location as well. And we also moved the crosswalk slightly closer to Vinyl Square, just to line it up. And we noticed that a lot of the southbound Princeton Street traffic had trouble seeing the crosswalk as they came up the hill, and so we moved it a little bit there just to open up the view for them as well. And I know the northbound is an issue as well, and but we felt that that was the best location for it. But you know, any kind of design process will figure out the exact location of where that crosswalk is going to be. And then the last piece we looked at is the main intersection of Route 3A with Watton Street. And what we mainly heard here was the issue of congestion, the delays on Watton Street when softball games end. Either the signal is too short, or we heard that, I actually heard the opposite, that Watton Street getting a green phase adds to delays on the main line, and that's probably mainly in the peak commuter periods. And we also heard that there are issues with the main line blocking traffic on Watton Street. So cars waiting in traffic on the main line were blocking the exits from Watton Street. And of course, pavement conditions were in poor condition due to heavy vehicle traffic on Watton Street itself. And on the right, there's the concept plans, and I'm not going to kind of sugarcoat it. If we say do this or we do that, the congestion's going to disappear, and that's just not the case when you have a line of cars leaving the field at the same time trying to access Route 3A. What we can do is, and what we're planning to do is to upgrade the traffic signal as part of the project, upgrade the pavement markings, and if there's a real issue of cars blocking the intersection, there can be new pavement markings and signage reminding drivers not to block the intersection. But one of the things we can do at that with the signal, when we upgrade the signal, is to identify when the real delays on Watton Street are. So I mean, I'm assuming in general, like softball games are not going to be finished during the peak commuter hours. So they're probably off, in the evening time, probably past the peak. So what we could do is adjust the signal timing during a certain time of day to allow that queue to ease up a little bit. So this is visual. This is just a visual look at what we're going to do. And I didn't mention this, but we're proposing putting some sidewalks along Watton Street. But what I want to focus on is we had an issue with access and egress to the public parking area off of Princeton Street. And the problem is, people are having a hard time taking a left across 2 lanes of traffic here in Vinal Square. So, and we've heard from the owners that that's an issue. The owners, the private owners that own the rest of the lot, that this is an issue as well. And one of the thoughts we could look at was an additional kind of driveway access from the back of the parking lot, and this is something you have to work with the owners of the lot, and we have heard that they may be amenable to adding a driveway onto Watton Street from the parking area. So that's one of the big things, and it's just something we need to take a more in-depth look at. And and I just wanted to end tonight with just like we backed out. We have to kind of a more of a bird's eye view of the whole area. So this rendering here just basically shows the majority of the study area with all of the different improvements being proposed, the new signals, crosswalk beacons, bike lanes, improving of the sidewalk network, and the 2 new gathering areas that we presented here tonight. So that's the concept, the draft concept we presented. And we'd just like to get your feedback and make any additions or changes prior to finalization of the concept plan that we'll provide to the town for their approval. And if the town desires to move forward with the concept, NIMCOG will gladly assist with any initiation of the project with MassDOT, whether we fund improvements through our transportation improvement program or some other statewide funding program. And in the meantime, there are other programs where you can look to do some shorter term improvements, and we can assist with those as well. Things like Newfield Street signage and Adam Street signage and markings, they're low cost, and that can be part of a town maintenance effort. Or there are 2 state funded programs available to be used for smaller pieces of the overall concept. The Complete Streets funding program, that will allow up to $400,000 for construction of improvements with projects that are listed in the town's Complete Streets prioritization plan, which Vinal Square improvements are part of that plan. And this could be, installation of the flashing beacons at crosswalks, bicycle amenities, things like bicycle racks, sidewalk improvements, things of that nature. And the other program is the MassDOT Shared Streets and Spaces program. That's a low-cost program. And that's aimed at improving kind of gathering spaces, like creation of sidewalk dining, and that was created out of the COVID-19 pandemic, just to help businesses recover, like restaurants recover. And you could create a parklet, which is basically taking a parking space and putting in seating or something like that. And that's the concept. That's our presentation. We'd love to hear feedback from you or any questions you may have. Our contact info is here as well. And so we're ready to take any kind of questions you may have.
Excellent. I appreciate all the work that you folks had done with that, Justin, very much. And that's what this is here for, folks, whether you're online or here in the room, and I appreciate everybody coming here. If you have any immediate questions right now, we'd love to hear from you, and questions for them or feedback, et cetera. And just as per usual, just step up to the mic, state your name and address, and let's hear from you.
Joe Reddy, owner of 11 Vinal Square, live at 58 Bartlett Street. First, thank you for everything you guys do. Such a thankless, great job at trying to solve such a tireless problem that we have in Vinyl Square. This is just kind of more of like a concept thought. Was there any thought put into possibly wrapping Middlesex Street around, I don't know what the name of this little road here is where the park is, but potentially pushing the park up and making it contiguous where this small section in front of Pickens Insurance is, and maybe possibly even moving Vinyl Statue up to create essentially, I think, more of kind of a parking area. And I guess a concept idea is more like if you're in Chelmsford Center over by Academy Street and you have the church there, you know, they have all the parking by the Forefathers Cemetery, maybe something like that. You don't have to do it. I'm just kind of, as I look at this slide 17, you know, kind of makes a little bit of sense. The other thing I'm looking at too is that public parking area, which is so critical to Vinyl Square. And if you drive through that intersection, it's extremely difficult to come in and out of it. So, you know, I'm just looking at the concept plan. It looks like you got like 3 parking spaces that are essentially blocking it. So I'm just curious what kind of the plan is for that, because I think making that flow will definitely help ease a lot of the parking type related issues that exist there. The easier it is to get in and out of there, the better it would be for people. So again, thank you for everything you do. I know it's like, I'm probably coming in like final hour, but that was just kind of my 2 cents.
Always appreciate it.
No, yeah, absolutely. And Justin, I don't know, any of the feedback that you've gathered answer any of those questions that Joe had, or?
I think the second one, by the way, it's just a drawing. It does show that a car is parked in front of it.
Yeah.
It's just not meant to be there.
Oh, yeah.
Blame the drawer, yeah.
The opening will be the same.
Yeah, if you look at 16, 16 has it right.
Yeah, if you go back to that plan, I think it's right.
16.
We went back and forth. Let me pull this slide up right here. We went back and forth with this area, with this gathering area right there, Middlesex Street. We did think about adding parking because that was adding sort of on-street parking because that was an issue. But we ultimately just went with the idea of a gathering area. Visually, it will probably look a lot nicer with that in place.
We did also, Justin, talk about, I can't see it, is it Wright Street?
Wright Street, yes.
And whether that should be, you know, blocked off for parking, whether that should be one way, right? There was a few different discussions on that, I think.
Yes.
I see what you're saying though, Joe.
So when you, with the idea of a one-way, if that was gathered, did you think of, okay, on-street parking, parallel parking, or any other kind of parking to add there, or was it just one-way for safety, or what else were you thinking of when you mentioned that?
I think the issue was the cut-through traffic on Wright Street, trying to avoid the new signal there at Middlesex Street in Princeton, and the idea was to make a kind of a northbound one-way. And the only issue with turning that one way is that does affect the other streets between Middlesex and Princeton, like Cottage Row, with vehicles trying to cut through that way as well.
Okay.
I think if you were, for what Joe is saying, if you were to try to do something where you'd almost block off down where Pickens Insurance is and you'd use Wright Street, you'd probably have to take a piece of the park right now, because you'd have to make it much bigger, right?
Yeah.
But I think I understand what you're saying, Joe.
Has there been any consideration of trying to do, instead of parallel, would we gain anything if we just sacrificed a little bit of the common, but went in on an angle, nose in toward the common? Was that ever, like if you're going southbound on Middlesex, if then you could turn in, it just creeped up in a little bit? I don't know if it's too much to move that, but has that been considered at all, or to try and add more spaces versus parallel, if it was that nose-in angle parking?
We didn't really focus on the type of parking with this concept.
Okay.
The issue with the angled parking whether it be a 45 degree or a 60 degree, is it takes up more space. So there would be less, we only have so much space on Middlesex Road in that area. And do we want to go into the common itself? I mean, I would prefer keeping the common as a green space. So, I mean, ultimately, we just kept the parking as parallel.
And backing into the traffic there or something like that also might be a concern.
Thank you.
Is there a? I actually don't know the answer to this. Is there a net add or loss of parking throughout the square? Do we actually do a count? I meant to do one. I forgot.
Did you hear that, Justin?
Oh, right.
I didn't count the exact, but we lose 1 to 2 spaces over on Dunstable Road, but we do gain a space here on Middlesex Street. We lose a couple spaces with the gathering area there at Middlesex and Princeton, so it's probably a net loss of maybe 3 spaces.
Yeah, but the one thing to consider for everybody here, and Justin, you can agree, you mentioned it, I mean, that way, if we get more actual use out of the municipal parking, because we can eventually get that access down to Watton, I think that's a win. Because people will want to use that, because then now they can get out to Watton versus not wanting to take a left onto Middlesex, because you really can't cross over.
Yeah, with the addition of the bump outs, it's basically an addition of 3 street parking spaces, and roughly a loss of 3 spaces with the parks. So I think it's pretty much about the same. And I agree with you, Joe, that you can improve the accessibility of the public parking. That would hopefully solve some of those problems.
Okay, anybody remote have any questions? And I would also appeal to the kind folks that made the trip here to town offices, again, especially on a Thursday night football night with the Patriots. Please raise your hand or do whatever you need to do on Zoom to ask remotely. Or Justin, do you see any comments? Are there any comments on the call? Because I'm actually just here in the room.
I do not see any comments or anyone with raised hands.
Okay.
Hopefully they're all in favor and think it's great.
Yeah. Let's move on. I also want to thank Colin Spence to show up here in case anybody had any safety questions. Then also Steve Yonley was logged on earlier, but I knew he had another meeting as well. But appreciate their support in getting things done. And one thing I'd like to add is that Steve made sure there was Varney Ave got improved too, and there's a new street there behind the tennis court, so it looks great, and I appreciate that as well. But just trying to buy time in case anybody was thinking to ask any other questions as well. Joe. I don't usually have to twist your arm, Joe.
Sorry. Joe ready again. So I can't see because this is black and white, but the sidewalks, are those actually going to be improved? Like the sidewalk around where my building is, are they actually, because that's a terrible sidewalk and it's been needed to be improved for years. Are they going to rip it up and put a new sidewalk in?
You mean up Adams?
Up Adams, yeah.
Yeah. Justin, does it go?
Yes, yes. All the sidewalks in the project area will be upgraded.
Okay. Perfect.
See the blue, Joe, on the screen there where it's not black?
Yeah, I just want to make sure. I couldn't see on the actual.
Yes, the sidewalks
Okay, the
up
blue
Adams
areas
Street
are
will
on
be-
these sidewalks. Okay.
My only concern, I just want to just really preface this because you're putting that park in front of the hardware store, and they're going to
Yeah.
lose spaces. There's a lot of things going on in that area that require parking. So 2 spots, believe it or not, will become a serious problem for people. So if you can think of ways that you can try to adjust for that, that would be fantastic. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Ruth Monahan, West Chelmsford. When you're talking about parking, I gotta tell you, I don't really get it unless you draw me on the edge of the road where people would be parking. Like, little rectangles so I could see how many cars do fit.
They're on there.
Yeah. You're welcome to mine.
Oh, it's harder to notice on the black and white, is that what it is, Joe?
First set were
Probably.
the second set was black
Okay,
and white.
yeah, that's what it is,
What
okay.
page was it on? Because I wasn't getting it.
It's hard to see.
So-
I do see what you're saying, but the beginning and the end of the space isn't demarcated, right? Just
Yeah,
the
well,
sides.
beginning and end doesn't tell me anything. It's like how many cars really
In
fit in there.
between.
Especially because we know a lot of people pay no attention to the lines.
And they need work, and they need to update, and
Yes,
that's
they
all
do.
part
They
of
need
this, yes,
tickets.
the designated spots, yes.
Yeah, but it's designated spots, because then when you're talking, like up by that little park, whether going nose in instead of parallel would be more efficient, then I'd have a better idea of, what would the space look like if it was instead of this way, this way? And that's what, I need that much visual.
Fair enough.
So that's a good point, because some of these copies are black and white, and it's easier to see the colored document, and what we can do is post, unless it's, because this is a moving document, that we can post this on the website, right, on our committee page, so that would give you a better way to look at it too after this. So note to self, if anybody here is a black and white, or anybody at home wants to have this, we will upload it on the town website.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was just gonna say, we could do a drawing that has numbered parking spots.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right?
Eventually, when they get further down the road, you can just show it for the neighbors to see. You can do 1 through 35 that are on the street, and then.
So that you
and then
know what the
parking
total
lots.
number is?
So you know the total numbers in the area.
Okay.
It'd be nice to call it out, but we can do that for the next phase.
Perfect. Good idea.
Good evening, Michael Garvin. Couple questions about the traffic signals. The new traffic signal at Middlesex Street, will that be coordinated with the existing traffic signal location?
Yes, it will. Yeah, well, but they're very close to each other, and there will definitely need to be a coordination between the two segments. Yes.
Great. And then by taking the existing traffic signal location and modernizing that, that will become more efficient by doing that, better detection. However, by introducing a new phase, for Dunstable Street, and by pushing back the stop line on Groton Road, that's actually going to lose some efficiency. So I don't know if you've really kind of analyzed the net result level of service there?
Yes, adding a phase will affect the delay throughout the intersection. It was just what we heard in the feedback and from the survey is there was a big issue with vehicles on Dunstable Road not being able to get onto Groton Road, and this was the concept that we looked at to improve that issue, and yes, it will affect delays on other phases. Yes,
I agree with that concern as well, but I think another thing that we're trying to address with adding the signal there and moving the stop line back was people ending up blocking the intersection as they're turning left into the intersection from Dunstable Road. And, somebody's blocking the area there, that causes inefficiencies as well. So it might be a little bit of a trade-off, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Justin, before any signals could be put in, they would have to do some careful studies of.
Yes. During the design process, there would have to be what we call a traffic impact study, and that will look at all of the different concepts for signals before anything is done.
Okay, great. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that being said, is there anything around here that you feel in every square downtown and intersections like this have their own look and feel, of course, and we know we're dealing with our own, but is there anything similar that has been upgraded with somebody to try to drive through and experience that? Would there may be something similar that you know of in this area in Middlesex County? Just as a reference point, do you know of any of the projects you've done upgrading their intersections that have somewhat of a setback delay or something like that that is in the area that we could go visit if we wanted to try and see how that runs through?
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, but I can look into that and get you some examples.
And again, you know, since we've had issues with those lights in the past, and we all know that, it's like, this will be all new equipment, which you hope that they're resynced. And in fact, I already got some feedback from Steve Yonley that, you know, there is concerns adding that, just like you said. And then sometimes when there is a certain delay, or if there's a public safety issue where they have to put everybody on stop, there's a reset where it recalibrates. But there may be somewhat of a hiccup, but then it resets itself and it recorrects itself, which you may know about that, Justin. That's over my head.
Yeah, there'll be signal priority for any kind of emergency vehicles, and that just sort of cuts the phasing of the signal, and basically it starts over once that signal preemption goes away. Okay. But that will be built into these traffic signals, the emergency preemption.
Excellent.
Justin, or maybe Beverly, one question that I had from some individuals before this meeting was just timing. Can you give any sort of update on, you know, when would something like this start? What does the timing look like?
Well, there are, decisions that the town will need to make in terms of whether they want to advance the concept or portions of the concept or make modifications to this. Once there's a commitment from the town to move this forward, then there needs to be some discussion with Mass DOT to present the concept to them and to get buy-in from them, given that they do own the roadway that goes through the square. In terms of getting beyond that, actually into the project approval and initiation process, there's a very defined step-by-step process that the town will need to work on following with Mass DOT, and we can give you some help with that. So the project would then have to be officially initiated through a committee that Mass DOT has, where they look at the project from an engineering feasibility perspective and determine whether, in fact, the design principles that we're advocating for are sound, and confirming that the road is eligible for federal and state funding, which this clearly is eligible. There's no question about that. And then at that point, it's a question of moving the design forward, which I think in this case, Mass DOT will play a pretty key role, given that they own the roadway. It generally takes maybe a couple of years to get through the design process and the design review and approval process, and then there'll be some environmental permitting that would likely be needed. And get to the point where the project can be implemented. It will have to be programmed on the Transportation Improvement Program, which is something that happens through our office in partnership with Mass DOT. So typically we see these projects go from sort of the concept phase to the implementation phase. A typical time frame would probably be about 5 years. So it's not something that's going to happen overnight, but there is a very clear path forward. It's just a question of going through the steps and finding the funding. And we're actually at a pretty exciting place right now in that we have a federal infrastructure bill and opera funds and a lot of resources that are going to be available for these kinds of projects that we've never seen before. This is a once in a generation thing. So there may be potential to move this forward more quickly than would typically happen.
Beverly, I think that's why some of those questions came out, and for once, maybe we hit timing right.
Could be.
I think everybody's gonna have their hand up, though, for projects, I'm sure.
No
of it,
doubt,
so.
no doubt.
Yeah.
A good candidate.
But we're your favorite town and project, right? Well, again, I appreciate all your feedback. Anybody have any last questions for the folks at NEMCOG or anybody? I think it's fantastic, and I really appreciate everybody coming, and also the questions, too. They're very good, and the good thing is that, I mean, this was a town effort, and with 150 people surveying, and Justin said the amount of things that were pulled, well over 200 to 300 items that were, put down, but priorities, this means we spoke up and we said this is what we want, so I appreciate that.
Just thank you very much, Evan, too, right?
Yes.
You're the one who helped us facilitate NIMCOG getting on board here and
Absolutely.
have guided us along the way, so thank you very much.
Anything else?
I like
You want to
Sure.
talk about the train? Train station? The
Yeah, that's
bigger
next.
scheme is we're building a little downtown here for the train station.
Don't think that email wasn't sent to our congressman this evening.
That's it. I appreciate everybody tuning in and dialing on and joining us here. And we made some good time here and covered a bunch of things. But again, we have a lot of fun times out of this committee and subcommittees, so please reach out and get involved, and we can only do that much more, that much quicker, and it's a lot of fun.
I would reiterate that we need more help in some of the volunteerism. So please step up if you can.
And trust me, we make it fun, and there's a lot of good things that go on. But like I said before, I mean, with all the money being spent, I'm glad everybody's here to help raise our hand to make sure we get some attention here in the North Village. But that's it. We got a lot done tonight, and I appreciate everybody coming. And go Patriots. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.